Hi guys, how are you all doing? Welcome back to Nitah Crochets. My name is Nitah. Today we have these wide leg granny stripe shorts. I don't know, I literally was just bored and I was just looking for a project that I can work on with the granny stripe, since most of you mentioned that you like granny stripe, granny square projects. So I thought I could make these wide leg shorts. And they're very simple to make. Remember, I have made the granny skater skirt, the granny skater dress, and now we have this granny wide leg shorts. So if you haven't seen my channel, I have all these projects and tutorials on my channel and written patterns all on my online shops. I always have the links in the description box, so kindly check the description box as always just to get the links to my written patterns. Now to get started, just like we did for our granny stripe skater skirt and skater dress, it's the same way we are going to get started here. You will just make a slip knot and work chains that are in position to stretch out to pass through your hips, okay? But make sure that the number of chains or the total number of chains is divisible by 4 and 3. For example, 96 is divisible by 4 and also divisible by 3. So that's what I mean. But that's what I needed to tell you. Yes, so just make sure that your number of foundation chains is a divisible number. It's like in multiples of 4 and also can be multiplied by 3 or divisible by 3. So that's what we are going to make. And once we have all the chains that we need, we are then going to work a slip knot into the very first chain that we started with. Okay. Also, I forgot to mention that deduct one chain from the total number of chains that you have to work. Since we are working in rounds, that means our very first stitch or chain will also act as our very last stitch or chain because we work a slip stitch into it, right? So that means if you have to work 96, which is a number that is divisible by both 4 and 3, we are going to deduct one chain and work 95. So whichever number that you have to work, be it 120, be it 100 and something, just make sure that you deduct that one extra chain at the end so that we have one chain deducted from it. And once you have that, you're going to work a slip knot into the very first stitch, and there we get started on our very first row, right? Just like that. So once you have your slip stitch complete, I was literally struggling at the time. Once you have it complete, you are going to work one chain, and into this very first stitch you're going to work a single crochet. Okay, then you are going to work one single crochet into the next stitch. Continue working one single crochet into every stitch all the way around until you come to the end of your row. You should have the very same number of stitches as your foundation chains. So you should have a total number of 95. For me, I work 95. So you should have a total number of 95 stitches once you come to the end of your row. So let me meet you guys there, then show you what to do. Now, here we are at the end of our row, and this is what we have. So once you come to the end of your row, you're going to work a slip stitch. And once you have that, we are going to chain, please chain 3, don't chain 2 like I did because I later cleared that up. So chain 3, and the 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch. Now into that very same stitch, you're going to work 2 double crochets, okay? And then we are going to chain 1, work 3 double crochets once again, all in that very same stitch. All right. So this is more like an increase. And now we are going to skip 2 stitches, and into the next stitch right there, we are going to work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch. So that's 1. and then you work your second and then the third. Right now we are going to yarn over, skip 2, and into the next stitch. Once again we work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch. So yes, you work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch. So you can see that we have 2 sets of 3 double crochets and we need the third set. So we skip 2 and get into that next stitch. In there we work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch, just like that. And then once we have 3 sets of 3 double crochets, like you can see, we are now going to yarn over, skip 2 stitches into the next stitch. Right there we are going to work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch, right? Because now here we are going to be working an increase. So once you have your 3 double crochets, you're going to chain 1, and into that very same stitch once again you work 3 double crochets. So in this stitch we have 6 double crochets and a chain 1 in between every 3 double crochets. Once you have that complete, you are now going to do exactly what we have done previously, right? You are now going to still work 3 sets of double crochets like we did here before we work this increase. So we are going to skip 2 and get into that next stitch. We are going to work 3 double crochets in there, just like that. So that's the second and that's the third, right? And then we are going to skip 2, 1, 2, and get into that next stitch. Work your 3 double crochets once again, right? So we have 2 sets of 3 double crochets so far. So to work our third set of 3 double crochets, we are still going to skip 2, get into that next stitch and work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch. So that's the second and then the third. And once you have all 3 double crochets, then now we are going to work the increase that we worked right here. So we are going to skip 2 and then work 3 double crochets into that next stitch. So you go in with your second double crochet, then the third double crochet. Now chain 1, chain 1 and then work 3 double crochets once again all in that very same stitch. So in the stitch in which we work an increase, we always have 6 double crochets, but those 6 double crochets have a chain 1 in between every 3 double crochets. So this is what we are just going to do repeatedly all the way around. Just make sure that you work 3 sets of 3 double crochets and then work an increase just like I have showed you. So this is what you do all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of your row. Here we are. This is how your row should look like. So at this point we are not going to work increments anymore, and what we are going to do is we are going to chain 3. The 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch, so we get into that very same gap right there and work 2 double crochets into that very same gap, which is the first gap. Then now we are going to yarn over and skip the next 2 stitches, get into that next gap, work your 3 double crochets in there. All right, I keep saying skip 2 stitches, they're like 3 double crochets, but remember the one that has to be the third double crochet into its gap. That's why we work our next set of 3 double crochets. So what's going to happen is we are going to be working into the gaps in between every 3 double crochets. So yes, you do the very same thing, go into the next gap and work 3 double crochets in there. This is going to happen even for the chain 1, you know, into that chain one, we're just going to be working 3 double crochets. Now, like you can see, here was the chain one, so I'll get in there and work 3 double crochets all in that very same chain one space. And this is just going to go on and on for every gap and every chain one space on the previous row. And this is what we are going to do repeatedly until we come to the end of our row. All right, so just continue working your 3 sets of your 3 double crochets into every gap all the way around until you come to the end of your row, and that's where I'm going to meet you guys. Oh yes, when you come to the very last gap right there, you're just going to work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch of the 3 that started the row. So you're going to repeat this, and I'm going to just meet you on the next row to explain something before I let you guys work the next rows on your own. So here we are. I have so far worked 2 rows and I'm just back to change my color. But yes, this is how your work should look like. Yeah, like you can see, this is how my work looks like. And what I'm going to do on this row is not different from what I've been doing. It's just chaining 3. Work a double crochet into that work 2 double crochets into that very first gap, right? Work your 2 double crochets in there, and then you are going to get into that next gap right there and work your 3 double crochets all in that very same gap, right? Do the very same thing into that next gap, work your 3 double crochets. Now this is what is going to go on and on all the way around, okay, just like you did previously. And this you are going to repeat for the next rows until you have at least 10 inches before we start working the crotch. So let me meet you guys there then show you what to do. Now we are here. I have if your working size is large, yeah, you should work at least 15 rows in total. But if your working size is medium and small, I advise you have about 12 rows, right? So now at this point, what you are going to do is you're going to count the sets of 3 double crochets that you have all the way around and divide that number by 2. And once you count all of them, have your result from division, we are going to get our stitch marker and mark the very first gap, okay? Then mark the gap that comes after the result of your division, right? Counting from the second gap. What I mean is, okay, if you count all the way around and just like me, you have like 48, so you will divide 48 by 2. That means you get 24. What you do is you mark the chain gap of the very first 3 double crochet. Then from the second gap you count 24 and mark the 24th gap. All right, right there you get your stitch marker and mark it. So we marked the very first gap and then now the 24th gap. That means the gap that comes after that 24th set of 3 double crochets. So this is where our crotch is going to be, like our division to make this skirt shorts is going to be. So to get started, we are now going to get exactly where we started our project. We will chain 3 and the 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch. So you turn your work and into this very first gap right there, we shall work 2 double crochets all in that very same gap. So which makes it 3 because the 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch. And then we are going to chain 1 and work 3 double crochets into this very same marked gap, okay? So you work your 3 double crochets in there. That's the 3rd double crochet. And once you have that, now what's going to happen, we are going to get into this next gap right there, and we are going to work 3 double crochets all in that very same gap. Now what I usually do is I will work first one row of the increments go into the marked points, okay? Then the next row is when I actually bridge this marked point to the other marked point, giving us a left leg and a right leg, okay? So now here what we shall keep doing is working 3 double crochets into every gap all the way until we get to the marked gap on the other side that we indicated is going to help us with the division, because now we are working on the crotch area. So yes, just continue working 3 double crochets into the next gap all the way until you get to this marked stitch. That's why I'm going to meet you and show you what to do. Now once there, we are going to get into that marked stitch right there, and we are going to work 3 double crochets into it. Okay, so we work our second double crochet and then our third double crochet. Then now we are going to chain 1 and work 3 double crochets once again, all in this very same gap, right? So you work your 3 double crochets just like that, and then we are now going to work skip the next 2 stitches and work 3 double crochets into that next gap. Okay, so you work your 3 double crochets in there and continue working 3 double crochets into every gap all the way around until you come to the end of your row, into that last gap right there. Then work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch of the 3 that started the row. So let me meet you guys there. So here we are. This is how my row looks like so far. There is no that many changes as yet, but now this next row is when we are going where we are going to like divide this into shots. So what we do is we chain 3. Remember, the 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch, so you chain 3 and turn your work into that very first gap, that very same gap right there. You work your 2 double crochets. Okay, then now we are going to skip 2, work 3 double crochets into the next stitch. Okay, it's just the same thing that we did previously. So work your 3 double crochets into that next gap and skip 2 into that next gap. You work 3 double crochets in there. So you just keep doing this all the way until we get to the chain 1 space of the 6 double crochets that we worked into the previously marked gap. Okay, actually, to make this simpler, I would have to first switch these stitch markers. All right, so I'm going to switch them and put them into the chain 1 spaces so you know exactly where to stop, and let me meet you there. So I'm just going to take this out and put it into the chain 1 space, because now that's where our center is. So you put it in that chain 1 space that was in between the 6 double crochets that we worked. Also, I'll get this and switch it and put it into the chain 1 space of the previous set of 6 double crochets. So right there, so it is easier for you guys to know where exactly you need to stop and have me meet you. Okay, so yes, work your way all the way around until you get right there at the marked stage. Here we are. I am almost at the marked stitch. So what happens here is we get into the marked stitch, we skip 2, sorry, we skip 3 this time and get into that marked stitch and work our 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch, just like that. And now we are now going to work our bridge. Okay, so to work that bridge, to connect to the other marked stitch on the other end, we are going to chain 10. Okay, once you have all 10 chains, you're now going to put your work in a way that links you to the other marked stitch right there. So please make sure you don't twist your work. Okay, so just get into that marked stitch, literally just cross over, get into that marked stitch and work 3 double crochets. Remember to work them towards our starting point. So that's why I say turn your work and position it in a way that makes you work towards our very starting point. So in there you work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch right there. And once you have that, you are now going to work a slip stitch into the 3rd chain stitch of the 3 chains that started this row. Okay, so now we have worked our division, like we have now a left leg and a right leg. Okay, so now to work our next row, as you can see, this is how our work looks like. Yeah, to work the next row, what we have to do is we chain 3. 3 of these chains act as a double crochet stitch. Okay, remember to turn your work for every row. So you turn your work, and now we are going to be working towards the bridge. So into that very first gap right there, we work 2 double crochets all in that very same gap. And now we are going to skip the next 3 stitches and get into our very first chain of the 10 chains that we worked. In there we work 3 double crochets all in that very same stitch. And now we have our 3 double crochets. So what happens is we skip 2 and get into the next stitch right there. We work 3 double crochets. So once you have your 3 double crochets, you're just going to do the very same thing. We are going to skip 2, get into that next stitch right there and work our our 3 double crochets. Now I made an error here, but I'm going to put it right for you guys. So after you have this set of 3 double crochets, you are still going to skip 2 and then into the next stitch you work your 3 double crochets. Okay, and then once you have those 3 double crochets, you are now going to skip the next 2 stitches, get into that gap like you can see I did, and work your 3 double crochets. Okay, so I missed the 3rd set of 3 double crochets on the bridge. Yeah, and I later realized that I had a big gap, so I had to go back and put that right. Okay, so don't be like me, just work it the way I have spoken, go all the way around until right here and work your slip stitch. Okay, so let me meet you guys there. So not to waste time, what you do on this row, when you go all the way around, you are just going to repeat this and repeat this for your next rows until you have the length of the leg that you desire. So I'm just going to get back to show you how to work this other leg, then our waistband. So like you can see, I just added my other row. I'll add more rows to that leg later on, but let me just show you guys how to work this other leg and leave you at a point where you can just go on with the length of your legs as desired. So we are going to get into the marked stitch right there, our previously marked stitch. I hope you guys didn't take out your stitch markers. I did not, so I know exactly where to where to start from. So I'm just going to get in there and pull through my yarn, then work. At this point the sun was super bright. I liked it, although it was making shadows, but please bear with me. I love to work on natural light since LED lights got me headaches and headaches every day, to the point that I had to do my CBC test thinking that I had any other issues. But yes, it was light from the LED light. So now I work with natural light. So with the shadows, please bear with me. So yeah, we pull through our yarn and work 3 chains, and the 3 chains act as a double crochet stitch. So into this marked gap, we work 2 double crochets more, all in that very same fast, oh my god, fast gap, right? Then what happens is we work a slip stitch into the next double crochet stitch, which was the 3rd double crochet of the marked stitch previously when we were starting our leg or right leg, our other leg that we just stopped working. So then once you have worked your slip stitch into it, that's to connect these 3 double crochets onto the previous 3 double crochets. We now work 1 single crochet into every chain gap on the opposite side of the chains that we have worked for our bridge that connects this end to the other end. So on the opposite side of those chains, we work 1 single crochet into each one of them, and make sure that you have 10 single crochets. I had less, but what I'm speaking is exactly what you should do, because to rectify what I had done is not something I did on camera. So just with what I speak, please do that. Yes, so you work your single crochets into every chain stitch, and to work our very last single crochet, which would be the 10th single crochet, we work an incomplete single crochet. Then we yarn over and insert our hook into the marked the marked gap on the other side. That marked gap right there. So we pull through and have all those 4 loops on our hook. Then we yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's how we get to connect our very last single crochet into that double crochet without working a slip stitch, which we had done on this side when starting the row. I hope you guys have understood this clearly. I do this technique for almost every shorts of mine. This is just to have a resemblance of what I did on the left leg and what I have done on the right leg after working that bridge that connects the 2 or divides the skirt to become a short. So into that very same marked gap, you work 2 other double crochets. Once you have that, we are just going to keep going on with working 3 double crochets into every gap all the way around until you come to the end of your row. Okay, then work a slip stitch. Then you work a slip stitch to into the 3rd chain stitch of the 3 chains that started the row, right? Now once you have this, everything else remains the same. I just needed to show you how to work this row. But once you come to the end of this row right there and work your slip stitch, the last row that we have worked previously, before I told you to repeat that, is exactly what you work. Like you can see right here, the way I worked here is exactly what I do on this side, and then after I repeat the same thing until I have the length of the leg that I desire. Okay, so I just needed to show you this one step that initiates the next rows for this other leg. Now what's going to happen now is working my waistline, right? Working my waistline, we shall just get our yarn, whichever color that you choose, and we are just going to work the same technique I have been showing you guys in my previous tutorials on how to work your waistline or your waistband. Okay, so guys, here we are. We're just going to find any point on this waistline, right there, and we shall insert our hook in there. Then pull through our yarn and work 6 chains. It's according to how wide you want your band. I usually just want, just enough with it for my band. So I work this time I think I worked 7 chains because I wanted to just go extra by one stitch. So once you have your chains, you are now going to get into the second chain stitch from the hook and work a single crochet, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into every stitch all the way down until we come to the end of our row. So if you worked seven chains, then you're going to have 6 single crochets, and if you worked 6 chains, you're going to have 5 single crochets. So once you come to the end of your row, we are going to work a slip stitch. We're going to work a slip stitch into that next stitch on the opposite side of our foundation chains. Then we work another slip stitch into the next stitch right there. Now we are now going to work into the single crochets we previously worked for the band. So you turn your work, and into that first single crochet you work a single crochet and just work 1 single crochet into every stitch, going back all the way up our band, until we have come to the end of that row, just like that. So you work the final one. Make sure that you have 6 stitches if you had 6 previously, and make sure that you have 5 if you had 5 previously. So here we shall chain 1 and work 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and just work 1 single crochet into every stitch all the way down. Make sure that you have the very same number of stitches as your previous row. So work all the way down and then once you have all your stitches, that's the final stitch right there. So once you have all your stitches, you're now going to get into that next chain stitch along the opposite side of the foundation chain. So you work your slip stitch and then work another slip stitch into the next chain along the opposite side of your foundation chains. Then here you will turn your work and work your single crochets just like you were working them previously. Excuse my little brother, him always trying to serve me something to drink because he knows I be talking a lot while recording these tutorials. So yes, once you have that, you're just going to chain 1 and turn your work and work your single crochets back all the way down. And once you have come all the way down, you work your slip stitches just like you should. And this is what you just keep doing repeatedly all the way around for your whole entire waistline. So the number of times you go up and down should be equivalent to the number of foundation chains that you had, because we are working into every opposite side of that foundation chain. So just go all the way around, and after you will stitch your band together. You will stitch the ends of your band together to close up your waistline, and there you will have had your shorts complete. I hope you guys like this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Let me see you all in my next tutorial, and goodbye.